Welcome on to this, the final of our 2019 Bonitas Comrades Marathon online training seminars. My name is Brad Brown, and we've got the Comrades coach, Lindsay Parry, with us once again. Lindsay, how's it going?
It is going very well, Brad. I actually can't believe that it's a year since we had this same chat for the down run. But yep, yeah, we have it. We are heading into the last 2 weeks of Comrades preparation for this year. Unbelievable, but we are there.
Yeah, Lindsay, I'm with you. I actually can't believe it. It seems like yesterday, and we've been doing these things for a number of years now, and they seem to just go faster and faster. I love doing them. I know you love doing them as well. It's just a great opportunity for us to essentially get into everyone's living rooms, not just here in South Africa, but pretty much around the world. We've got people from everywhere joining us. And I'm going to ask you to let us know where you are joining us from today. Pop it in the comments. Let us know where you're joining us from. Also, let us know what number Comrades this is. If you're an out-and-out novice, you've never done one Comrades before, we'd love to know that. Pop that into the comments. If you've done one down run and this is your first up, let us know as well. Or if you're an old hat at this, if you're going for your green number, maybe you're going for a double green, triple green, I don't know what it is, pop them into the comments now. I see lots of comments coming through. If I could also ask you, one of the ways that we get this message out to as many Comrades runners as we can is because of you. So if you wouldn't mind helping us share this video, if you're in a Facebook group, all you need to do is hit the share button below this video. You can tag your running mates as well so that they'll see it on their news feed. We'd really appreciate that. And if you can see and hear us, give us a like or a love. That really helps as well. And just make sure that we are doing exactly what we should be doing. So this webinar, Lindsay, is probably my favorite out of all five because you can almost, as much as you're sitting in Johannesburg, I'm sitting in Cape Town, you can almost feel the excitement and the nervousness because we're so close to race day. And this is a biggie. If you only ever come to one of our online training seminars, this is definitely going to be it. So just a massive, massive thank you to our sponsor for this series of these webinars. It is brought to you by Bonitas. It has been brought to you by Bonitas the whole way through as well. And if it wasn't for Bonitas, this series of webinars definitely wouldn't have been possible. So a massive, massive thank you to Bonitas there as well. And then, Lindsay, just to run through some housekeeping quickly. As always, who we are, as I mentioned, I'm Brad. The Comrades coach is with us. Questions and comments are always welcome. We're going to try and get through as much of the sort of presentation that Lindsay wanted to run through tonight before we get to questions. I think that'll answer a lot of the questions before we get to them. But you are more than welcome to pop questions into the comments at any time. If something's not clear, the comments are there for you, and we'd love to hear from you. And what are you going to learn tonight? That is the big question. So with 2 weeks to go to race day, we're going to talk about choosing the right goal for Comrades. What do you need to do in the next 2 weeks? Sorting out niggles, what you need to do if you are struggling with a bit of an injury. And then the big one, race day management. We're going to go really deep into that and make sure that you have got everything, all your ducks in a row, so to speak, as far as race day management is concerned. I don't want to mess around, Lindsay. I think let's get straight into it. Let's talk about what to do right now with pretty much under 2 weeks to go.
So look, I'm in the fortunate position that I'm going and giving now at quite a few clubs. I think I've got I've done 3 or 4, and I've got another 3 or 4 to get through in the next 6 days or so. And really the message. Everybody right now, it doesn't matter what medal you're going after, whether you're trying to win the race or whether you're trying to cross the line in 11:59, but with 2 weeks to go, you can't get any fitter. So the only way to get, or the way that we improve fitness, is that we fatigue. And if we create fatigue in the next 2 weeks, then that's going to cause you a problem on the 9th of June. So really, from here on in, I always tell people in the last 2 weeks that you want to do as little as possible without doing nothing. And that's really what the aim should be here. This week that we're in now, between Monday and to today and the weekend, you are looking at doing at most 75% of what you have done the previous week. And on the weekend, I'll do absolute maximum of 15 Ks, but anywhere between 10 and 15 Ks is absolutely the most you need to do. And then in the final week, you will do a maximum of 50% of what you're going to do this week. So really from here on in, it's about getting fresh. And the fresher you get yourself on race day, the better you're going to do. And I'm sure this stat will come up again later in the chat. It's a stat that I use as a stick. But 68% of the athletes that do not finish Comrades, or that won't finish Comrades on 9th of June, will do so because they started with an injury. So if you have an injury, 2 weeks is enough time for a good physio to sort you out, and 2 weeks is probably enough for you to rest just about any injury or soft tissue injury that you've got, short of having a fracture or a torn muscle. But most of the niggles that you've got now, 2 weeks of very low training and rest should be able to get you onto the start line injury free. So make sure that any injuries that you do have, you out, that you get there injury free. And then also the other thing that I like to do now already, if I'm traveling and living in Joburg as I do need to travel, more than 90% of the field are traveling to the. I like that bag with my license numbers, race kit, underpants, shoes, socks, cap, absolutely everything, nutrition, gels, energy drinks I'm going to be mixing down there. I like to pack that in these last 2 weeks, because with 2 weeks to go, people are already getting nervous, but we're not that petrified, nervous, forgetful. To pack your race bag, know that you've got everything that you need. It also means that when you pack your bag, if you discover missing something, that you can just quickly nip into the shops and get that done. And that way, there's going to be no surprises waiting for you in race week when you're stressed out about what's to come. But that's pretty much it in terms of what you're going to be doing at the moment.
All right, cool. Lindsay, I've just had a quick squiz that there seems to be one or two sound issues, and unfortunately we are live, so this is quite difficult to handle. We are at the sort of behest of internet service providers. So, Lindsay, I'm going to ask you, if you wouldn't mind, one of the things that obviously does use a lot of bandwidth is cameras. So I'm going to just keep the slides up, if that's cool. We've shown our mugs to everyone. So, Lindsay, if I could ask you if you wouldn't mind turning your camera off. I've turned my camera off as well. And hopefully that will then speed up the connection a bit as well. Lindsay, you were talking about sort of making sure that bags packed and all of that sort of stuff. Obviously, the closer we get to race day, the more nervous we get, and now is pretty much the time to make sure that you've got everything you need. We spoke about checklists in the last webinar. It's pretty important to make sure that you've got all of those things sorted right now, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, that's why you want to pack your bag now. And it absolutely just makes sure that everything that you have, or everything that you need, you have, and that you're not short on race day. So it really helps it also just helps to settle the nerves a little bit, but it also starts to make things a little more real. When you pack that race bag, it's nearly time to get going.
Yeah, absolutely. Lindsay, let's talk about sort of, you mentioned treating pain. It's important. I mean, the stat that we mentioned in the last webinar was obviously, I think it was over 60% of people who start Comrades with a niggle, of the non-finishers, 60% of them started with a niggle. So if you do have a bit of a niggle now, it's sort of like D-Day. You've got to get that thing sorted.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I was saying moments ago, that 68% of the people who do not finish Comrades do so because they start with an injury. So if something's sore, you've really got to use these 2 weeks and get that sorted out. I mean, I can't stress that any more than we already have. And also, just to reiterate something, and a lot of people panic and they really start to lose confidence just by missing 1 or 2 sessions. And I sit here now and I assure you that if you do not do a stitch of exercise between today and the you are going to lose so little fitness that the increase will easily outstrip that very minute loss in fitness. So you really are not going to lose any fitness in the next 2 weeks, and therefore it is absolutely imperative that you go and get that pain treated and sorted out. And I always say this at this time of year, that this is the one time that less is more. It's much easier to mess up your race day by doing too much, by doing too little in these last 2 weeks. You definitely want to err on the side of doing too little rather than the side of doing much.
Yeah, Lindsay, if I can jump in there too as well. Talking of getting treatment, it's vital to get professional medical help if you do have a bit of an issue. You see it all the time, and we're all on Facebook. Obviously, we're broadcasting this live on Facebook, and every single day you see more and more posts of people saying, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that, what do I need to do? And the advice that comes out, first of all, Dr. Facebook can't diagnose your specific condition, and because Dr. Facebook can't diagnose your specific condition, it definitely shouldn't be prescribing solutions for that issue. So if the only advice you take from me tonight is get to a medical practitioner, whether it be a physio, a bio, or a sports doctor, and get it checked out by a professional so that you can get some help for your specific case. Keep the questions coming. I see there's lots coming through in the comments. We love getting them. We're going to answer a few of them now in a moment. And just once again, a big thank you to our sponsor, Bonitas, for making these webinars possible. They are the official Comrades Marathon sponsor. And they're doing some amazing things at race day, on race day and around the race this year as well. Make sure you check them out at the Expo. Speaking of the Expo, Lindsay, let's talk about the final few days running into the race, and particularly the Expo.
Yeah, so I mean, if I haven't stressed enough that we need to do very little in the last 2 weeks, then in those last couple of days, then you absolutely need to keep it low key, rest as much as possible, stay off your feet. And that, of course, means that when you pop off to the Expo, that you go there and keep it quite a focused tour. I mean, you want to get in, you've got to register, get your goodie bag, get your race number. Obviously, you want to pop off to the memorabilia shop and get yourself a little bit of a memento for the 2019 Comrades. And then the Expo is a really awesome place to kind of see what's new in the industry and exciting. And obviously, you're not going to use any of that stuff in the race on the 9th of June, but it's still great to see it and feel it and see what's coming up. And then you want to get out of there. You can do all of that probably under an hour and a half, but certainly you do not need more than 2 hours. And I would say that the later that you are coming into Durban, the less time you can afford to spend at the Expo. I have to be at the Expo. I love being at the Expo because I get to interact with all the people that we've been talking to on the webinars over the year. But on the years that I'm running it, I do wish that I could be off my feet a little. Yet I see people that come around there and they spend 2 to 3 whole days just walking around the Expo, and that's what you really want to avoid. And the other thing, as exciting as the Expo is that is probably the place where you're going to be the most nervous, because then Comrades is front and center. So I'd say get in there, get out. We are going to be doing some talks at the Expo, going over the route again, which we're going to do this evening, and talking about race plans and talking about how to use pacing charts, pacing bands to get you round. So if there is a particular talk that you want to do, and we will be putting those or the program out later this week, then try and coincide your visit with one of those talks so that you're not coming back and leaving the expo. But I mean, really the short version of everything I'm saying is you want to spend as little time on your feet as possible in the last 72 hours leading into the race. And then on the slide there, I've got to route or not to route. That is the question. And it's always nice to know where you're running. And Bruce Fordyce always tells us that a scared Comrades runner is a good Comrades runner. So if you are getting into Durban on Thursday or early Friday, then I would say that it's probably a good idea to get onto one of those bus tours, check out the route so that you can really start seeing and visualizing all the things that we are going to be talking about in terms of the route just now, or perhaps on one of the talks that you come to at the expo. But if you're getting in on Friday late, I cannot in good conscience tell someone to get into a car or a bus and get squished up for 2 or 3 hours, because that's how long the tour is going to take the day before you're about to run an ultramarathon. So it is a good idea if you're getting into Durban early. It's not a good idea if you're getting into Durban late.
Absolutely, and just an apologies for that last point for all our Australian viewers, because that's quite rude down under. Lindsay, root or not to root. We'll keep it tidy.
Fortunately, the spelling is different.
All right, a couple of questions, Lindsay. The first one is from Fahima. Fahima's actually popped in 2 questions there. Taking liberties, Fahima, but it's okay. We will forgive you. Says the first one is, how close to race day should we be getting a sports massage? If this is how we've been training, that's a very important caveat to that question. And secondly, we've been advised to make use of walk breaks in the first half. Is there a particular way to break up the big hills, e.g. walk the steepest, run the parts before the descent, etc.? I think we're going to get into the routes in a bit more detail, but Lindsay, I don't know if you want to answer both of those now, or answer the one and then deal with the other one later.
Yeah, no, I think I will answer both of them now. So the walking one is the easy question to answer. So I'll tackle that one first. Look, I think over all the webinars, I'm quite a strong proponent of run walk, and the important thing for me is that the run-walk strategy needs to be something that you're comfortable with. That's something that you can get into a groove with, almost like that you've run enough, that you've earned yourself that little walk break. So I think that part people have probably got down what they're going to do now, and hopefully they've implemented that in their long Comrades runs, be that a 5 kilometer 1 minute, or a 10 kilometer 1 minute, or one water point 1 minute type of run walk strategy, and then the hills. So, if you know the Comrades route well enough, then I would say that a really good strategy would be to walk on the steepest part of the hills. But the thing with the Comrades hills is that they aren't the steepest hills. Most of the Comrades hills are not steep by Joburg or Cape Town, Pretoria standards, but they are long. So they tend to be more gradual and really long. And that's why I often try to break it up in terms of running ability almost. And I'd say that if you're in the 11-hour plus category, you probably want to take on like a 1-to-1 ratio. Run 1 minute, walk 1 minute, or run 1 pole, walk 1 pole, that sort of thing. And if you're in the 10 to 11 hour, you'd run 2, walk 1. And if you're in the 9 to 10, maybe 3 to 1. And if you're in the 8 to 9 category, then you're probably going to walk maybe twice on the long hills, and once on the short hills. And then from from 8 hours and down, people will have their own unique strategies about how they're going to deal with the run. Anyway, I mean, we're talking about 6-7% of the race there that, will figure that stuff out for themselves. So for the bulk of the field, it'll be a 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 sort of run 3 minutes, walk 1 minute up the hills and stay as fresh as possible. In terms of massage, if you've been getting massage all the way through, Fahima has, so she is at an advantage, but I would still say that you want at least 72 hours for your legs to really settle after a massage. And also in the last week, I wouldn't go for a really deep massage. And a good experienced massage therapist that you've been working with all along probably wouldn't do that anyway. So you're probably safe there. For anybody else, people who know that they see the benefits of massage, and so they can go every month or 2 months for a massage, that sort of massage, or somebody who wants to go for a massage for the first time because they've heard it's good, I would say probably the Friday or the Monday at the absolute latest, because when you go for a massage and you haven't been, it can leave quite a bit of bruising and be a little bit sore. So you do want to give yourself some time. So Friday is probably the Friday as in 2 Fridays before, not the Friday of race week, or at absolute latest that Monday of race week to have a massage.
Cool, great question. Lindsay, here's a fantastic question. One that I haven't seen this one being asked. It's from Chad. He's saying that we mentioned you won't lose any fitness in the next 2 weeks, but can you gain fitness? In other words, can one expect to get fitter? It sounds like Chad's trying to cram for his exams like I used to do at varsity.
So Chad did miss the opening slide where I said the only way to induce fitness is to create fatigue. And so you can get fitter in the next 2 weeks, but then you are going to also get more fatigued. And if you get more fatigued, that's going to give you a problem on race day. What we do in the next 2 weeks is that we improve freshness. And freshness, I guess, is in some ways, it feels a lot like freshness, because once that fatigue leaves your body, it allows you to perform a whole lot better. So it allows that fitness that you've built up over the last 3 or 4 months, often longer, it really just allows it to come out and allows you to access it. So in the next, and that's again why I always stress in these next 2 weeks, you are far better off doing too little and really boosting that freshness than doing too much and stunting that freshness and racing tired on race day.
Absolutely. Chad, great question. Thanks for asking that. Keep the questions coming. I see there are tons and tons of them coming through. Lots of people sharing this broadcast as well. Thank you very much. And if you have just joined us, apologies once again for not seeing our mugs. We are unfortunately at the behest of internet service providers, and for some unknown reason, our internet speeds aren't the greatest this evening. So unfortunately, we're battling with the streaming. I see there are 2 angry face emojis, 2 people not happy, unfortunately. So, yeah, I'm sorry if you're not happy. Rather give us a love or a like. Facebook likes that better. So do we. Lindsay, I think the next question sort of runs perfectly into what we want to chat about next. And it was posed by Fairly. Fairly saying, please say something about realistic race day goals specifically for novices. So, I think that is a fantastic question, and I'm going to ask everyone as well. If you wouldn't mind, in the comments, let us know what your goal is. What are you going for time-wise? Just so that we can have a bit of a feel as to who is on here and what the goals are. If you wouldn't mind popping those in the comments, it is much appreciated. Lindsay, I think this plays straight into our next slide, which is basically got to do with setting realistic goal for race day.
Yeah, and look, it's just such a key component of a successful day at Comrades. You've spent months and months preparing for this race. In particular, the last kind of 10 weeks, you probably ignored your mates a bit. People at work have maybe got a little bit grumpy with you. Your family's a little sulky with you. So you really want to get it right on race day. And setting a realistic goal is just so key there. So there are a couple of things that I'm going to give you a very general idea of how to decide what is a realistic goal, and then I'm going to throw a couple of curveballs in. So people are going to have to concentrate now as they listen to figure this one out. So a pretty good rule of thumb, provided that you've had fairly good training, and certainly if you've been following the training programs on the Comrades website or on our website, I would classify that as pretty solid training, and therefore it will be able to back up what you are capable of. So if you take your qualifying time, your marathon, and that also assumes that your marathon was a reasonable effort, that you ran quite hard and it wasn't just a training run just to get a qualifying time. But if you've run a pretty solid effort on a marathon and you multiply that time by 2.5, that will give you a pretty good idea of what you're capable of at Comrades. So let's take somebody who ran 4 hours for their marathon. They've done pretty good training. They would be capable of running a 10-hour Comrades. Okay, so there are a few things that we need to then take into account from there. I like to look at 5, 10, and 21K times so that I can see if the marathon time is matching up with expectations. What does that mean? That means that if somebody is quite fast over 5 and 10 and 21, but then their marathon time is a little bit disappointing in relative terms, then I'm going to say, okay, you probably need to add 15 to 20 minutes onto your time, because as you go longer, you are slowing down, and that's probably going to extrapolate into Comrades. The opposite is also true and very common in females, and very common when we get into the 11 and 12 hour runners, that when we look at the 5, 10, and 21K times relative to the marathon, we actually expect a slower marathon. And in that case, you can upgrade your time by maybe 15 to 20 minutes at Comrades. Then there are a couple of other things that need to be taken into account. So if you live somewhere that is pretty cool, and this is often, and I've just seen this over and over and over again, that people who are coming from the northern hemisphere to run Comrades haven't experienced the heat and humidity. So particularly Europeans, to be fair. In the training, a lot of their training was done through the winter now, and they're just starting to get into their summer, and the Durban is actually still quite humid and it's still pretty hot. So if you are coming from quite a temperate environment, then you need to add 20 to 30 minutes onto your time, because over the years, that's kind of what I've seen, is that people tend to be about half an hour slower, and the only real thing that I can attribute it to is that it really does tend to be people who are coming from cooler climates and then are running in quite hot. We're expecting at least 24 degrees Celsius on race day and a bit hot and humid. So hopefully that then gives you a reasonable idea of how to work out what you are capable of on race day. And then it becomes quite crucial to sit down with the route and plan how you're going to get to that number. And in the next slide we're going to see the route, and then people will understand a little bit what I'm saying. But I'm just gonna put out an example here. If I can just find on my laptop quickly some work that I've been doing. Let me give you an idea with a silver medal runner. So 7 hours. If you want to run 7 hours for Comrades on the up run, you need to be able to average 450 a K. And on the hills, the guys that I've got that are chasing that sub 7, they'll be running 520 on some of the climbs, and there's some even slower ones, quite a few 520s, 520. So you need to go through that route and look at the gradients and see what's a realistic number particularly given that you're going to be doing a run-walk strategy, and figure out what speed you're going to be running on the ups, what speed you're going to be running on the downs, how long are you going to take to cross the start line, and that's really what I'm looking for, is because I do have a chart here somewhere. There we go. So a chart. I've got a chart here for a sub 11. Average pace is about 7:28, and time to cross the line will be about 6 to 8 minutes, because they're starting in F or G. Can't remember exactly, but you need to take that into account, because if you're going to take 8 to 12 minutes to cross the start line, then it means that your average pace over the rest of the race to get yourself under 12 hours needs to be adjusted accordingly.
And Lindsay, you talk about those pacing. We get this question, and we're getting it lots with regards to the pacing charts and pacing bands. There are going to be pacing bands available at the expo?
Yes, absolutely, and those will be sold for charity. And you and I will both be on hand at the expo to chat to runners. Marcus Fanikak, who's also part of the Coach Parry team, will be there. He's one of the coaches, and he coaches a couple of guys to Comrades. And then Shona will also be there. So, we'll have a team there that'll be able to help people pick the appropriate pacing bands, give some advice, make sure you understand where we are, or understand how to use the pacing chart, and that they do in fact take into account the ups and the downs as you go at Comrades.
Absolutely. Lindsay, then there was one more point on that slide, and there was a question that was related to it. Someone was asking, what do they need to have with them on race day, from a race day pack perspective? What do they need to have on the route? And your theory is quite simple: nothing new on race day.
Yeah, absolutely nothing new on race day. So, that I think is a little more difficult for our international runners that are coming from overseas. And so I do highly recommend that if you are coming from overseas and you're coming on your own in particular, and you don't have any support on the side of the road, to get in touch with a company called Con Sports. Just do a Facebook search or Google search. Get hold of Con Sports, because they do organize seconding for foreign runners or athletes that don't have clubs and club tents that are coming down, and then they will have 3 or 4 spots along the road where you can grab a goodie bag and restock with anything that you are used to using. So, your gels and energy drinks and so on that you are accustomed to drinking, you can get those on the side of the road. Otherwise on the road will be Coke and Powerade, which is very similar to Gatorade. Doesn't taste the same, but in terms of its energy content and so on, it's fairly similar. And there'll be oranges and bananas and sweets and biscuits and potato crisps, and I'm leaving something out, but there are plenty of things to nibble on and drink along the way. But certainly gels and chewable tablets or anything else that you have been training on and are accustomed to using, that you want to either carry with you or have somebody that can give you that stuff along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And also bear in mind, as much as there are, I don't know, Lindsay, how many tables are there? 40, how many?
48 tables.
Yeah, 48 tables, and towards the end of Comrades, you can almost see the next one from the last one. They're so close together. But there are literally thousands and thousands and thousands of spectators along the route as well. Many of them have got cooler boxes, and most of them have got food and stuff along the way as well. So if you are needing something, just ask. Open your mouth and ask. People on the side of the road are more than willing to help, and you'll be amazed. And that's, I think, one of the things that we all love about Comrades. If you're a novice, it's going to blow your mind with regards to sort of just how everyone is on the side of the road trying to help you achieve your goal, which is pretty cool. Keep those questions coming, Lindsay. This one had to be asked, and I think it's an important one to answer. It's from Mauro. Mauro is saying, what are your thoughts on anti-inflammatories in extreme cases of pain near the ends?
Yeah, look, I really don't like any anti-inflammatories, and I did a club talk on Sunday, and I spoke to a gentleman there, and his very first Comrades, he popped Myprodols, and he woke up in hospital on dialysis. It was 2 weeks before he could go back home to Joburg, and it was a long, hard road back, and he was only able to complete Comrades again 5 years after his first Comrades experience. So, for me, there's never really an acceptable risk for that, and so personally, I won't take anti-inflammatories in any endurance event ever. But I also can't, just knowing that risk exists, and to me it doesn't matter how small that risk is, so knowing that risk does exist, I also cannot in good conscience encourage or recommend that anybody takes anti-inflammatories. And if you do have an injury, or you suspect that you're going to be in a lot of pain towards the end, then my advice is to have a conversation with your doctor, and whatever you decide is worth taking, make sure that the risks are minimal and that your medical practitioner is comfortable with what you are going to do.
Yeah, Lindsay, if I can add my 2 cents worth there as well. The good news is Comrades is amazing. The bad news is it hurts. It doesn't matter where you are in the field, you are going to hurt. It doesn't matter how much training you've done. If you've had the most perfect build-up, you are going to hurt on race day. And one of the amazing things about Comrades is overcoming that. Lindsay, I'm sure you'd agree with me, is knowing that you've probably done one of the hardest things you'll ever do in your life and overcome it. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to know that after the fact that I dulled that overcoming with something, whether it be pain tablets or anti-inflammatories, taking aside the medical dangers of it, but just knowing deep in my heart that I did it. It was me and nothing else that got me to the finish line.
Yeah, I mean, I can't agree with you more. I mean, I do believe that the thing that keeps people coming back to Comrades year after year after year is that absolute sense of satisfaction that you get from conquering your demons at 60, 65 kilometers. It is sore. You are tired. Bruce Fordyce actually said it the other day when I was having a chat with him. It's like, if I challenge you to stand there on that spot for 12 hours, it would be tough. So the reality is that part of the Comrades challenge, never mind running 87 kilometers, it's being on your feet for so long. But that is what keeps bringing us back. As you said, when you cross the line, you get such an overwhelming sense of achievement, and that is the thing that keeps people coming back for more. The camaraderie on the side of the road is great. The spectators are great. The atmosphere around the race is great. But really, when you burrow down into it, we keep coming back because we feel so damn good when we cross the finish line. And you're right. I also choose not to taint that feeling by wondering if I could have done it if I hadn't taken a Myprodol or something similar.
Yeah, and I finished Comrades at 130 Ks. So if anybody's going to hurt on the down run, it's me. So no one else has got excuses in my mind. Lindsay, this is an important question. A lot of people have been doing strength training. We put out a strength training program earlier on this year, and I know a lot of people have been following it. And we've had this asked a few times tonight. Vima Lala wants to know, when do we stop with the strength training?
So I again get all my athletes to stop 7 to 10 days before, and 10 days is safe, and the same principle applies, that the strength gains that you've made, you're not going to lose them in the last 7 to 10 days, but you do want to make sure that you are fresh and that they don't contribute to the fatigue at all. So for me, Wednesday is safe, Friday absolute last chance, and that's Friday the 31st, as in Friday coming. Not Friday the 7th.
All right, I'm looking for a question because it was asked early on. I'm just busy scrolling through them. Keep the questions coming, by the way, in the comments. If you haven't asked a question and you are needing some help with something, please pop them in. We're going to try and get to as many as we can. Obviously, a lot of them are very individual. But, we're going to try and get to many of them. I really, really want to find this question because it was a great one, and it leads us perfectly into our next slide. Lindsay, I can't find who it was from, but someone was saying, how do you prevent yourself from starting too fast? And I think this is the answer to that question, which is the Reid Profile.
Yeah. Exactly. So, look, there's a couple of tricks, and I've seen a really good post going around on Facebook at the moment, which says like, don't look at the K markers. Whatever you do, do not look at the K markers. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that Comrades has a very unique tradition in major road races around the world, and that is that you normally get quite positive affirmation when you're running along because you see 1 kilometer done, 1 kilometer done, 2 kilometers done, 2, 3, and so you kind of go up this list. Whereas Comrades, the first time you see a route marker, you look up and they're really nice big kilometer boards so that you can't miss them. And there, glaring at you, is 86 kilometers, which is quite daunting because you get reminded every step of the way how far you still have to run. But what I do think is a really important trick is for the first 2 to 3 kilometers to make sure that you go slow enough. And you know what, if you go too fast in a kilometer, especially in those first couple, I tell people, take a walk break. Take a walk break so that you can undo some of the damage that you've done by going too fast early. And the profile that you're seeing now is exactly why you need to take it easy. So I'm going to give you some stats now quickly. The first half of Comrades, well, you know, Comrades, one thing I've always said about Comrades is they were not interested in mathematics. So it's not halfway. Halfway is a traditional spot, so it's at 43 kilometers this year. So the second half is about 43.7 Ks. But of course, we also know that at Comrades that once you've done 2 Comrades, you're halfway to 10. So maths was never important. But in terms of the race, what you do need to know is at 43 kilometers, you will have done 900 meters of climbing, and you will have done 600 meters of downhills. So you have a net 300 meter gain in the first half, and you can see it there on that profile. So as we go through, I'm going to go through the routes shortly, but in the second half, we have slightly more downhill and up. It's negligible, it's 9 meters, but it's 300 meters of climbing, 300 meters of descent. So that second half of the race it's infinitely easier than the first half of Comrades. And so it's important that you do go slowly enough that you can run in the second half. And people always make the mistake of thinking that you need to be fresh. You don't need to be fresh. There's so many really runnable kilometers in that second half, but you have to be able to run. And if you can run, then you really are going to just scoop back fistfuls of time, particularly from around 53 kilometers all the way till about 77 78 kilometers. You put so much time back, and then once you get over the top of poly shorts, it's all downhill. So let's talk about some of the major climbs that you have to deal with. And I'm going to split it up into 10 hills that are name-worthy, and I'm going to go through the so-called Big Five first. So it's not really the Big Five follow in chronological order, and then we're going to talk about the next other 5 hills that you also need to be aware of. So most runners have heard of the Big Five. They've heard of Cowie's Hill. Cowie's Hill comes at around, if you're looking at that map, it's at about 15 kilometers. It's not too long, and actually there's been quite a bit of climbing to that point anyway, but Cowie's is the most significant of those climbs. You then go through Pinetown, and then you hit the foot of Fields at about 20 kilometers. And Fields Hill officially ends at about 26 or so kilometers, but there's still quite a bit of uphill running, albeit at a much lower gradient, right up till about 36 or so kilometers. You get a little bit of a break in Hillcrest, and then you hit the mighty Bonitas Hill, which is the third of the Big Five. So you climb 3 of the Big Five in the first half. Once you've gone over Bonitas Hill from about the 37 kilometer mark, you then do get quite a lot of really nice downhill running all the way into halfway. And then you climb in Chunga. So for me, Fields Hill is the hardest climb on the day in terms of degree of difficulty. And Chunga is the toughest because you've just run the hardest marathon you'll ever run in your life, and you need to repeat that. And the first challenge you're faced with is in Chunga, and it is a brute of a climb. But the good news is that, by the 50k mark, you've done 4 of the Big Five, and you really have broken the back of the Comrades. And there is a lot of good running, although I can't ever confess to having felt good through that section, but I've always been able to run, and that makes all the difference. And then you have Polly Shorts, which arrives with about 10 or so kilometers, probably 9 kilometers to go. It is really steep, but it is not long. So you will walk most of that, and then it's mostly downhill from there. So the Little Five, and these are the hills that I think really do trip people up mentally, because yes, there's a lot of climbs, and yes, there are others that I'm not talking about here, sort of, we'll call them most of them are unnamed, but you do need to be aware of them. And the first of those comes at 45th Cutting. Now, 45th Cutting arrives at about 6.5 kilometers into the race. So it's really early, it's dark, it's a short, it's not a massive hill at all. It's short and it's steep, and you get over it, and then you start moving towards Westville. Your next climb of real note there is then as you leave Camperdown. So there's a really big spectator spot in Camperdown. It's around 60-ish kilometers, I guess, 64 or so kilometers into the race, and it is a testing little climb as you leave that really big spectator spot, and there's a lot going on there. And then we hit Umlaas Road, which is the highest point on the route, and 20 kilometers to go from there. So that's around 67.5 kilometers. And from that point on, you do know that most of what you're going to be doing is downhill. And then you get Little Polly's. Now, Little Polly's is often mistaken for Polly's. So I will give you 2 pieces of advice. The first one is that if you're wondering if you're on Polly's, you're not on Polly's. Okay, so when you get there and you've been running downhill for a long time, and you suddenly think to yourself, oh, this is Polly's, or is this Polly's? It's not Polly's. The second point is that there are quite a lot of spectators just before that climb starts. Now, on Polly's, there are no spectators until you get to the very top. So the other thing that will let you know without doubt that you are not on polys is that there are no spectators around when you get to polys, but you can hear them at the top. And then finally, there is a new climb that was introduced in 2017 when they changed the finish. And so when you go over the top of polys, you are not going to be going downhill all the way to the finish as we did in the past. You're going to go downhill for about 1 kilometer. You're going to turn right, and you're going to turn onto Gladys Mazzini. I think I've been calling it by the wrong name all this time, and Brad corrected me today. But you turn right and you go over the national highway, and that is a bit of a tricky climb. But from there, with about 6 kilometers to go, it really is downhill all the way to the finish.
Yeah, absolutely. Lindsay, those are the 10 big hills, but the truth is there's a lot more to it, and we've had a couple of questions of people asking, how do you prepare yourself mentally for it? Hopefully tonight does. That going through the route like that and knowing what's in store is really going to prepare you mentally. Keep those questions coming, some great ones coming through. And then also just a massive thank you once again to Bonitas for making these online seminars possible. If it wasn't for Bonitas, they definitely wouldn't be happening. So we are truly, truly indebted and really grateful that they are happening. Keep those questions coming. Lindsay, question in from, this one is from Jacqueline Sutherland. And we had a similar question earlier on. I can't remember who it was from. But what are your thoughts on a short run on the Saturday before? A couple of people asking about the park run in Durban on the Saturday before Comrades Race Day.
So it's very much a personal preference issue there. And the way that I would say you need to decide whether to run the day before or not is to kind of go through your running diary and have a look and see how good do you feel the day after rest days, or when you run after a couple of days off. If it makes you feel a little bit pup and not lacquer and a bit lethargic, then by all means go for a little trot the day before. But if you generally feel really good after taking a day or two off running, then I wouldn't run the day before. And I'm using Bruce Fordyce quite a lot this evening, but that's largely because he is such a legend of the race, but also because I recently got an opportunity to spend time with him again. He has told me this before in the past, but I had forgotten. And he just reminded me about his taper. He did not run for 3 days before Comrades. So that worked really well for Bruce Fordyce, and he felt really good doing it that way. And so, that to answer your question, it really is, it depends entirely on how your body responds to a day of rest. And that's how I would make that decision.
Right, Lindsay, I think this question runs perfectly into our next slide as well. And it's all about making sure that you hold back. Grant is asking, hold back, please enlighten. Let's go into the next slide, because I think this is going to sort of really tie everything together that we've spoken about tonight.
Yeah, so making sure you don't miss your medal. I mean, this slide is all about sticking to your race plan. So I always encourage people to write very big where they can see it and they can't miss it, hold back, because it's so easy on race day to get caught up in other runners. And then also, when you start Comrades, unless you are in D and forward, everyone else from E backwards are going to lose fairly significant amounts of time before they cross the finish line. And once the race starts, and it's largely because the race really builds up and builds up, there's such a cracking atmosphere. You've got Chariots of Fire, National Anthem, Shosholoza, there's a lot going on, and Comrades does an outstanding job of really just building up the start. And so everybody is like coiled springs, just ready to go. The starter pistol fires, and then nothing happens. And the further back you stand, the longer you wait with nothing happening. and slowly you start to move forward, and you're walking, you're still not running, but the clock is just ticking and ticking and ticking, and Comrades is gun to mat. So once that gun goes, your time is going. So now people get to that start line, and they are in full panic because they've lost 8 minutes and they really need to go, and they've got to get them back. And that's when it is just so important to take a deep breath and to hold back and get onto your race plan. If you are in H-batch and it takes you 12 minutes to get across the line, the cutoff at 43 Ks is only 6 hours 10. So you aren't under any immediate pressure to catch up any of that time. You really can wait and catch it up slowly. You need to catch up those 12 minutes lost by roughly the 60K mark in Cato Ridge. When you get to Cato Ridge, at that cutoff, you do need to have made up the time. So it needs to be part of your race plan. But it's absolutely critical that you don't blow your race in those first 5 to 10 kilometers and you've gone out too hard, because you will pay for it later on down the line. Then, what is really, really important, or not important, what is quite fascinating to watch, is that once the sun comes up and people are going and you know the sweat is getting on, and you now are feeling a little tired and maybe feel like you've gone too hard on those first 8 to 15 Ks, all the urgency goes out of the day. And I watch people stopping to talk to people on the side of the road, and I watch people stopping to fiddle about at the water points, and you see people stopping to get a massage. So every time you stop, you should actually feel the same anxiety that you felt when you were stationary at the start line, because the result is the same. You're not getting any closer to Pietermaritzburg, and the clock is ticking. There are 48 water points along the route. So if you even stopped at half of those to fiddle around and tinker about, you are going to lose another 12 minutes. Every time you stop to someone on the side of the road, you can pretty much guarantee that you're going to lose a minute to 2 minutes. So 3 or 4 stops, and you've lost 6 to 10 minutes. Stop for a massage, that's 10 minutes gone. So along the way, you're going to waste way more time than you lost to get across that start line. So for the people in H-batch in particular, also in G-batch, but generally for everybody in the field, don't waste time on the side of the road. Now, I had a client last year that missed silver by 29 seconds. Now, 29 seconds is heart sore. But that is, you can always go back and look at what you did through the day. And there was a place that was easy to make up those 30 seconds. And the best way to ensure that is to write on your other arm. We've got hold back on the left, on the right, never stop. Once you cross the start line, that is the only time that you're going to lose for the rest of the day. You promise yourself that for every second of the rest of the race, you are going to move one step closer to Pietermaritzburg. Walking or running, but you are going forward. When you get to water points, it's fine to slow down and walk to make sure you get what you need, but you don't need to be stopping dead. When you see people that you recognize and you want to have a quick word, it's fine to slow down and walk and have a quick little chat, and just adjust your run walk strategy to take that as your walk break. Massage, especially if you are in H-batch and on the verge of not finishing. Massage, especially if it's just because your legs are a bit sore, it's not going to take that pain away. It's going to last for about 3 minutes, and the pain's going to be back. So do not stop on the side of the road. The only acceptable reason for stopping is to quickly pop into the bathroom. And then, as an emphasis on the quickly, let's not waste time in there. But really, if you If you hold back at the start to make sure that you don't blow your race early, and then you promise yourself that you're not going to stop for the rest of the day, then you will not be one of the people who misses their medal. You will not be one of the people who goes home without a finisher's medal.
Yeah, Lindsay, a couple of questions coming in about people asking, like, how do you know what the right pace is to start at? And I mentioned it earlier on that we are going to be at the expo. There are going to be pacing charts. The cool thing is they get sold with the proceeds going to charity, so they go to a good cause. But come past the Comrades coach stand, have a chat to either Lindsay or Marcus, and get your pacing strategy dialed in. Because, Lindsay, you've said this to me so many times, and every time I sort of talk about it, I always mess it up. So I'm going to ask you to fix whatever I mess up here. But you always say that you will never make up, or you'll always lose more time in the second half than you will what you can make up in the first half by going out too fast. I think I've messed that up again. But I think that's really important, and it drives the point home to start out. You can't bank time, particularly on the up run at Comrades. You are setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, so I mean, the very simple way of saying what you're doing is that you cannot bank enough time in the first half to defend what you will lose in the second half. Every minute that you go through halfway too fast will probably cost you in the region of 4 minutes in the second half. So, and look, just to give people again like a real rule of thumb so they understand how easy is easy. And that is that if you're aiming to run 11 hours for Comrades, okay, that means that you are going to be wanting to run at an average pace of about just over 7.5 minutes per kilometer. Now, as a rule of thumb, on the uphills, that means you're going to be running probably over 8 minutes per kilometer. And on the downhills, you're going to be running just under 7 minutes per kilometer. So that will give you an idea of how easy you have to go out there. Because there's a lot of climbing in the first half, so there'll be a lot of Ks that are going to be 8 minutes a kilometer. That will hopefully resonate with how easy is easy.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just looking at the time. Man, it's flown by tonight. We are running slightly over. Apologies for that, Lindsay. If you don't mind, we've just got a couple more slides to run through, and we'll pop a few more questions on as well, because there is something important coming up next week as well that I want to just mention as well. There we go, Lindsay. We are on camera. Hopefully it sorts everything out. So I just wanted to basically run through some resources that there are tons available right now on our website. All you need to do is go to coachparry.com. There is a whole bunch of audio podcasts, whatever it is you're looking for. If you are wondering about getting sick at this time, I see there's been a few questions about getting sick at this time. What about taking other forms of medication, whatever it is, just go to coachparry.com. In the search bar, look for something. We've pretty much done questions on almost anything that you can think of when it comes to Comrades. Also, check out our videos on YouTube. Just go to coachparry.com/YouTube there. And if you need some help in the final 2 weeks, check out the Comrades Marathon Roadmap as well. It'll get you sort of to race day, fit and fresh, and you get access to the coaches as well as motivation and accountability. And you can ask any questions you've got in the next couple of weeks. coachparry.com/roadmap is where that's happening. We're not doing another one of these live Bonitas seminars, but we are going to do something within the Coach Parry Training Club. So if you are a member, next week, Monday, the 3rd of June, we're going to be doing another one of these. It's going to be basically anything goes. There's going to be no presentation or anything, but it's your chance to get on a call with Lindsay and ask any questions you may have. If you want to find out more about it, head over to coachparry.com/join. It's going to be happening same time next week, Monday. The link for the members who are in there already is in the training platform under the event section. You can get the link. It's going to be happening there. So definitely check those out. And then if I can just ask you, if you wouldn't mind, let us know what you got out of these series of webinars. Obviously, Bonitas has been sponsoring them and putting it all together for us. They've really supported us in this whole series of online seminars. And if you wouldn't mind, just in the comments, letting us know, first of all, have you got any value out of them? and what value have you got out of them? Let us know. Bonitas loves seeing the sort of impact that they have in the build-up to Comrades every year, and this obviously helps us do this again next year. So if you wouldn't mind, in the comments, let us know what you've got out of this series of webinars. Lindsay, final question is, I say final, if there are any other questions, let me pop them in. But we had somebody asking about sort of cleansing and using something like a laxative the weekend before. Would you recommend that? And then someone else asking the opposite extreme to that. Would you recommend taking something like Imodium to stop your sort of bodily functions when it comes to nerves and that sort of thing? What's your take on either end of that spectrum?
Yeah, so I'm not big on messing with my body's natural functionality. So, look, to both of those, the thing that I'll stress, which is the most important in both of those, is if you've never done it before, absolutely not. So if you're thinking about trying it for the first time, if you haven't done a cleanse before, then forget about it. If there's probably a reason why you think it's good to do, or you've read something, then you need to do this at another race of slightly less importance and see how your body responds in the week after doing something like that. And certainly with the Imodium, if you haven't tried it before, don't. I mean, I have tried to do a Comrades once when I had a gastric flu, basically, diarrhea, and I had Imodium to try and help me get through the race, and it stopped my stomach, but it stopped everything else too. So I couldn't absorb anything. Nothing was emptying out of my stomach. And so again, if you haven't used something like Imodium before and figured out how it affects you as an individual, then absolutely don't do it. Of course, if you've done it before and you've done it at other races and it's worked, then by all means do it. But I wouldn't try that if you haven't tried it before.
Yeah, absolutely. Lindsay, I said it at the start of this broadcast. I love doing these things. I know you do too, and it's just an opportunity for us to get in touch with all the runners and really help as many Comrades runners as we can. We're both really passionate about the race, and we are going to be at the expo. So if you can't make the members only call next week, Monday, if you want to find out more about that, coachparry.com/join is where you can get those details. But we are going to be at the expo. You mentioned at the start of the webcast, in case you missed it, Lindsay's going to be there. I'm going to be there for 3 days as well. And then one of our other coaches, Marcus van Niekerk, if you listen to our audio podcast, you would have heard Marcus. And then Shona Hendricks, who's our head of athlete success, is going to be there too. And if you've used any of our strength training programs, you would have seen Shona. She does all the videos. The A team definitely going to be there. If you've got any questions, if you need any help with regards to race strategy, please pop past the Comrades coach stand, and also come and pick up your pacing chart, because they are being sold for charity. It's for an amazing cause across the board. All the Comrades charities are phenomenal what they do. They hold a very sort of special place in my heart, and if you can support those charities, please do. They're also going to have stands at the expo. They do some amazing work, and for a lot of them, they keep their doors open thanks to Comrades as an event. Lindsay, final parting shot from you before we wrap things up tonight.
Yeah, look, just really good luck. You've done a bunch of hard work to get here, and one of the darlings of the road racing scene, Caroline Cherry, formerly known as Caroline Wassman, she once remarked to me that after all her successes, when she couldn't start Comrades in 2017, she realized that the one thing she hadn't done enough in the good times was just appreciate being on the start line. So I think well done to all of you for getting to this point. Earning your place on the start line is already a hell of an achievement. So enjoy that. Don't be so scared at the start that you don't appreciate and enjoy the start of Comrades as you should. And then good luck for the actual race. I'm hoping we'll see a lot of you at the expo before the race, and even more of you afterwards in Pietermaritzburg.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to hear the war stories as well. Just a heads up as well, what we do as well is we send out a quick survey in the week or so after race day just to get your feedback on the webinars and the podcast. So expect an email from us. We really appreciate any feedback we get. We try and improve what we do every single year. So your honest feedback on those would be much appreciated as well. From myself, Brad Brown, the coach, Lindsay Parry, and everyone at the Comrades Marathon Association, and particular Bonitas as well for making these possible. Thank you very much. Best of luck in the final few days to Comrades. We'll see you at the Expo. And yeah, have a great day out on the 9th, and may all your Comrades' dreams come true.